Okay, welcome back to the channel. This is the first part of a little mini series we put together about renovating our new office.
Yeah.
We're sitting in it right now, and we wanted to take you on like a little bit of a journey about what we wanted in an office and also how we did it.
Yeah.
So let's get into it. This is our guest room. It's located basically in the middle of my shop and houses a lot of random stuff. It serves as my current makeshift office and luxury suite. Honestly, it's a little tricky to ask folks to stay over for reasons that are probably pretty obvious. The first thing on our to-do list was to clean. We tried our best to purge some of the old junk that we knew we didn't need and tried to organize the stuff we did want to keep while brainstorming why and where it would go in our new office. We also got rid of the queen bed that took up most of the room. We knew we needed to find a better solution for sleeping and sitting if we wanted to make this our dream office, and definitely did. More on that to come. Okay, so you kind of liked the carpet and the color scheme.
Yes. I've been very into terracotta recently.
No. This is the old color scheme. What it looked like before.
Oh. It was horrible.
If you're anything like us, you're not a carpet person. Carpet and our lifestyle just plain old don't mix, so we pulled up the carpet before much else. Here you'll see me using a trick I saw somewhere on YouTube a while back to easily deal with the junk carpet. The trick is to cut it into strips and then make rolls and duct tape them shut. Then you're left to deal with these nice manageable rolls instead of a giant piece of carpet that you'll likely take a bit of paint with when you haul it out of the house. You can do the same with the foam underlayment, and yeah, that's a lot of sand under there. So we wanted more light. Well, you wanted more light.
I wanted more light. I imagined like a big room with lots of windows and plants lining the windowsill and just tons of light coming in here so that we could use it for an office without like having to turn all the lights on and just have, I'm all into natural light. I wanted more light.
Because getting more light into the room was one of our top priorities, there was no other solution than to install more windows. It's actually in the ideal location for morning light, which is when we spend the majority of our time doing office work anyway. This was probably the biggest undertaking because it meant we had to remove the old window and reframe the wall. As you can see, I'm doing my best to take the existing wall apart as neatly as I can, and I tried to save as much of the building materials as I could. This wall has both fiberglass and rigid insulation, so I wanted to save both of those materials so I didn't have to buy new. As you can see, there's a couple of wall outlets below the window, but because we're reframing basically from the windowsill up, I just left those where they were and I didn't have to hire an electrician or try to move them myself. Well, in order to put more windows in, we had to do a little restructuring of the exterior wall. So I haven't done much framing, but I've done enough, and it really wasn't that bad.
I thought it was gonna be a lot scarier than it was, to be honest.
Yeah. All right, and now the framing begins. This process might look slightly different than how I would have done it in the summertime, but because we were in the dead of winter, one of my goals was to leave the window in the wall for as long as possible to keep the snow on the outside of the house, which turned out not to be the case, but more on that later. So I haven't done much framing, but I've done enough. I started by removing the existing 2x4s that I wasn't going to need and then measured my window opening and used a Sharpie to mark it on the outside sheathing. This gave me a no-fly zone for my framing and made sure I didn't frame the opening too small. I then installed the king studs. Those are the studs that stretch from the bottom plate up to the top plate, and then tacked in a couple of jack studs next to them to support my header. Where we are in Vermont, code requires that you install double jack studs for a header that spans more than 84 inches. The header I installed was way overkill, but I wanted as much nailing surface as I could get around the window for future molding and bracing for the hanging plants. Allie's a crazy plant lady.
happy. I don't know. I love things growing. I love green.
You have a lot of
I was
plants.
running out of room in the living room. So we needed an office with more light for more room for my plants.
Once the framing was complete, it was time to cut away the exterior sheathing to create the final opening. Waiting to cut the opening until this point ensures that your siding in OSB is flush with your window opening. For this we used a reciprocating saw, and Allie had to hold pressure on the vinyl siding so we didn't pop out too many of the siding nails. They're really kind of tricky to get back in place. And just like that, we had a giant hole in our house. Now it was definitely time to install the new windows.
What part of the project made you the most mad?
The snowstorm. You'll see what happens. Remember how I said I was trying to prevent snow from getting in the opening? Yeah, cue the snow squall. As the snow started to pound down, I hustled to get the opening taped up with ice and water shield. And then it was just a matter of inserting our mold windows into the opening and nailing them in place. Mulling windows just means attaching them to each other to create one big window structure. I did this off camera since the manufacturer recommends you have a professional do this for you, but they probably recommend you have a professional cut a big giant hole in your house too, so you can see how well we took that advice. Just between you and me, mulling windows is fairly easy, and the kits to do so are sold at any big box store. Once the window was installed, I put back the rest of the saved insulating materials and we could turn the heat back on. I mean, after the windows were in, that was kind of like the grand finale, and the rest of like everything we had to do was just put it all back together. The next morning I reinstalled the rigid foam insulation, and as you can see, we decided to replace the old stuff. Sometimes it's nice to start fresh with some foam that's a little higher quality, has a few less gears under its belt. Once the foam was nailed in place, it was time for some drywall. We live close enough to Canada where I felt comfortable doing this myself. Yeah, that's a stereotypical builder's joke. Seems the best drywall and mud tapers are Canadian. I couldn't tell you why. Alright, and that's gonna do it for this first part of the office remodel. Coming up, we're gonna do some fancy molding around this window. We're also gonna paint, install a desk, floating shelves. This is just the beginning, so make sure you're subscribed, make sure you like this video and share it, and stay tuned for part 2.